everybody. Nice to see you all here again. The next speaker, we would like to welcome Mr. Bireswar, Head Industry Services, Digital Industry, Siemens. He'll be talking on the topic building a self-reliant digital enterprise. Mr. Bireswar, request you to take forward this presentation. So can you just on your camera? Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning. Sir, can you take over the presentation?
Okay, now how do I share the screen here? Okay, show my screen. Right. Is it visible?
Yes, sir. We are able to listen to you. It's audible.
Okay. So, good morning, everybody. First of all, I'm really very happy to be here to bring to you this session, which is on the topic of transforming.
Sir, sorry to interrupt you. I think you have to make your presentation in full screen presentation mode. Yeah, not.
Yes.
You go to three dots here. One second. Go to three dots below your presentation main screen. Yeah,
Yes.
click there. Yeah, click. Yes, click there. No. Top of the yes, that one.
All right. Okay.
Yes. Yes, sir. You can start now.
Yeah. So, very good morning once again. Sorry for the teething trouble. So happy to be here. My name is Bireswar. I head the digital industry services in Siemens in India. The topic today that I'm going to talk about is building a self-reliant digital enterprise. And over the last 6 months or so, or the greater part of the fiscal year, or let's say 6 months of this fiscal year already gone by, we have been facing an unprecedented challenge both in the on our lives, on our business, I mean everywhere. Having said that, the challenges are something which comes off and on in one's life. You never know what the next challenge could be. For example, right now I'm speaking to you from my home over a virtual connection. I am being beamed over to your different computer screens. I am not on the podium. I'm not on the let's say dais. So this is a complete change from the time that we normally do our presentations, being in eye contact with you, looking at you, and making our points of view. This is a dramatic change. The change that we have faced over the last 6 months or so have been quite dramatic and at times quite traumatic for our different industries. Going forward, how this is going to affect us, how we are going to change the way we do business, this is something we are wondering about today. In fact, all the industry leaders, all the practitioners are today talking about how to tackle this kind of change, this kind of cataclysmic changes which is coming around, which can once again happen in the future. How do we do that? A few terms have been coming up quite a lot in these times, and you will have heard the terms of digital transformation, Industry 4, smart manufacturing quite a lot when we are talking about tackling these kind of challenges. Now, what exactly is this point of digital transformation? What exactly is this point of Industry 4? Let's take a look first at this. Is it the right way to go about it? Now, the slide that you see now is taken from a HBR review, and this was done on the topic of Industry 4 IoT. Why is it important to make the right choice? And I've been using terms like IoT, Industry 4 transformation. These are all interlinked. This was taken on whether the Industry 4 or the IoT-led Industry 4 a right choice to make. 45% of the respondents see a potential of industrial IoT, but do not know where to begin. 70% of all the digital transformation projects do not reach their goals. This is alarming. 70% of all projects do not reach their goals. So which brings us to the question whether the the starting point or the goal setting was right, whether the implementers were right, the partners were right. So what was right, what was wrong? And of course, when you have failed projects, you have the wasted investments. So this is really a difficult choice to make, and I'm sure when I'm discussing this, these points are being discussed across the industry top levels, and many a time this question do come up: to do or not to do, to go or not to go. Let's tackle this issue. What does digital transformation mean in the present manufacturing scenario? Now, like all visions, this has two parts: the what and the how. If you look at the top, where we have identified the what's or the digital intent, and below the capabilities or how. Now, if you look carefully, the what part is still talking about efficiency, is still talking about growth, is still talking about quality, talking about speed. Has anything changed? Quite thankfully, the fundamentals are still the same. There is no change in the fundamentals. You still look at the same value drivers. Look below, the how or the digital capabilities. Now, this is where the entire organizational capability or the entire organizational intent comes intertwined and delivers the what. So we are talking about the organizational leadership, we're talking about the culture, we're talking about change management, we're talking about technology adoption, what technology to adopt, which ones to implement, which ones to apply. So these are the how parts of the entire digital transformation. Now, having said that, I mean, let's also deal with a very, let's say, a very day-to-day example, very simple example. You have a knife. You sharpen the knife as much as you could, but still it doesn't cut. It still doesn't cut right because maybe the grip is not right. Less sharp knife with a much better grip would have possibly done the job more efficiently. Now, this is exactly what the point is. Are we changing for change's sake? Or are we doing things with a clear vision of our intent and our capabilities? This is exactly the point what one has to make in its organization when they're embarking on this digital transformation journey. Now let's look at the entire value chain, what we call as the manufacturing value chain. If you look at the bottom, you see the entire value chain that we see as a value chain of a manufacturing enterprise, going in from starting from product design and ending in the product at the customer premise and the maintenance of the product. The product design, process design, engineering and commissioning, operations, and then the product delivery, and then the services. This is the entire value stream, the entire value chain. Now, today we have the technology where we can marry this real world of man, machine, the entire processes into a virtual world. We can transform this real world of very physical, very material things into the virtual world where you can see it on your screens instead of at the shop floor. You can see it on your screens, you can simulate. This is what we call digital twinning. You can simulate the product, you can simulate the processes, you can simulate the performance. And this is what we call the complete digital twinning. Just my earlier speaker, she spoke about the digital twin application in the area of infrastructure, cities, etc. This is the digital twinning application on the industry. So when we look at the entire value chain or the enterprise value chain, this can be the real world can be brought to the virtual world. It's something like doing before, or let's say seeing before what can happen when you implement something. This obviously changes dramatically the concept, the times, the time to implement, quite dramatically. Of course, it has its investments, but then this is how the things are going to be in the future. Having said that, let's look at the building blocks. The picture that you see here is a representation of the current state of affairs in the industry. Now, don't you see the picture kind of looking disconnected? You see a lot of white spots. If you walk into an industry today, you will probably find at the top of the automation pyramid the omnipresent ERP or the enterprise resource planning. Now, this was thanks to the 90s. Every industry today runs an ERP. Depends on the size of the company, the size of the ERP. If you look at the bottom of the pyramid, you look at the real physical world, the assets, you see the machines. You look up, the next level, you see the programmable logic controller, the data acquisition, and then the screens. Now, this is all that you see. But you see the gap here. From the bottom or from the real world of the assets to the top floor, where you have the management information systems, the ERP is delivering all the management information, there is a big gap. Big gap in terms of the fact that the data coming in is fed by someone. This is not real time. You do not know what exactly is happening on your shop floor in real time. Now, the transformation or the building blocks of the digital transformation today intends to connect all these pieces together in a real time, so that you have a connected enterprise which is connected or integrated right from the shop floor up to the top floor. Now, which are the building blocks I'm talking about? The very first layer above the machines are the sensors. The sensors that is going to suck the data out from the machines. Now, all the machines are bringing out data. Some of them may not. You are in a position today to actually adapt them so that they can also deliver the information that you need. The sensors are the most critical part or the most critical building block of today's digital transformation. Next, of course, comes your controller, the acquisition network. Sorry. Yeah. Once the data is sucked out, the data is put into a data repository, what we call the data lake. Now, this can be on premise. This can be in a cloud. This is something which the organization has to decide. And then, depending on the complexity of the organization, complexity of the process, you may or may not need a manufacturing execution system, which actually will feed the data real time into the ERP. And then we decide on the work packages. Now, this is again coming back to the what part. We can look at work packages like planning and scheduling, asset performance, quality, energy data, production analytics, process analytics, up to logistics management, up to your product lifecycle management. Now, these are all the different work packages that you may decide that your organization needs to transform. Now the picture looks much more complete. Now the picture looks connected. The data right from the bottom up to the top is coming in a seamless way. Having said that, is it complete? No. Now let's look at what exactly are the backbone for all this to happen. First and foremost, IT infrastructure. The IT infrastructure till date have been isolated in different parts of an organization. You have the IT at the enterprise level, which is running all your ERP systems, all your information systems. There is IT at the shop floor, which are disconnected with the enterprise IT. We need to integrate this. So the IT infrastructure is one of the most key parts, which is the backbone of this entire digital transformation. Next comes the network. You have the IT infrastructure in place, but the data will be carried by the network. So your network has to be properly designed. And once you have a connected enterprise, you need to look at the security. So cyber security becomes of critical importance. Now, I'm not talking about only data pilferage. I'm talking about malware that can stall your production line. So I've already talked about asset integration and vertical integration in the earlier part. So these are the backbone, or this is the backbone of your entire digital transformation journey. Now the picture looks more or less complete in terms of connectivity, and bringing the entire making the entire organization integrated. Having said that, what is the next or what is the most critical part which is going to really transform an organization? What is it that is going to make the dramatic change that the organization will take a leap for? This is the mindset. Why we talk about mindset? Now, this is not the mindset of only an individual or a group of individuals in the organization. This is the mindset of the organization as such. This is culture. Why I'm talking about it is because let's take an example of an organization which wants to address the issue of quality. The issue of quality is something which is which it may be facing today because it suddenly finds the rejection rates are high. It gives rise to costs. The products are failing, so therefore it needs to address it. Now there are standard processes, there are standard operating procedures. The individuals working in the entire value chain, they are tuned to certain processes. How are you going to change it? So it doesn't only need the commitment of the leadership, it needs the commitment of the entire organization, all the stakeholders in the organization to change. Now this change, because if you're going in for a transformation to address the quality issue, you may find at the end of the transformation journey that the quality issues could be traced back far earlier in the production process, and therefore it may need changes in the process. It may need changes in the job roles. So therefore, it needs a commitment from each and every stakeholder in the organization. The question, obviously, that will come and that will face everybody in the when you start on the journey is what is the invest and what is the return? And I'm sure many a times when some of you would have brought this topic up with your top management, this would be the first question to ask: what is the invest? What is the return? Are we really should we really go for it? To my mind, this is not the relevant question. Why? I'll come back to the question later, but why is it not the relevant question at this point in time? The more relevant question perhaps is to ask, can we live with this quality in the marketplace in the coming future? Will the market allow me this, let's say, luxury in the near future? And the same question would face us if we're talking about topics like traceability, if we're talking about topics like energy cost per unit of product, if we talk about topics like speed to or time to market. These are all questions that the market will decide, or the answers the market will give us. It is perhaps not possible for us to exist in the market if we ignore this quality issue. So therefore, it's an existential issue. Will you survive or will you perish? Will the competition let us survive, or will the competition push us to oblivion? This is exactly the topic that is to answer. The topic of invest versus return will come, obviously it will come, when you're going to make the choices of partners, when you're going to make the choice of technology. That is when this question will come about. But to go or not to go, to do or not to do, this is no longer a question. We have to. And therefore, we need this change in the mindset of the entire organization. Another question which faces us, and I think this is a question which is asked by many in many forums. Will it change job roles? Will it create disturbance in the workplace? I think this question has been answered by history itself. Whether it was automation, whether it was computerization, whether it was ERP, at every phase of industrial transformation, we have faced this question. But the end result is people introduce technology to make lives better, not the other way around. So therefore, when we embrace the digital culture, there will be need for reskilling, there will be need for upskilling, but this will, at the end of the day, enrich the workplace, make you more relevant in the upcoming future, in the upcoming industrial world. So we have to stay relevant, and the digital transformation takes us to that relevance. Having said that, let's come back to the topic of the digital transformation as a journey. And we really think that this is a journey. It is not a one-time or a one-day solution. This is a journey over a period of time. And therefore, it's important to mark the milestones. So what are the milestones? The first point, as I said, I mean, this is where the mindset change begins. We need to understand the drivers. You remember the talk of what and the how, the first part, the what. We need to identify the drivers in the organization, the areas that we need to address. And this comes through the point of, or let's say, the process of self-discovery or value discovery, whatever you call it. You look at the value chain, you try to identify the value drivers that are not giving you the right values, and you try to address the issues. So this is the part of value discovery. The next part is to, I mean, of course, you will need the right partner for that. The partner who will bring in the outside in view. Now, having done that, the next phase is to identify the current state of affairs. If you recall the picture on the building blocks, you would have seen the gaps. So this is the area where you look at the maturity assessment. How mature are we in our organization to take the journey forward? The maturity assessment is the second most critical part of the digital transformation journey. Having done the maturity assessment, next you chalk out your program. You do the scenario definition, you make the solution maps, you identify the different work packages. And this is where your let's say, this is the middle of your journey, where you are very much in the thick of things. You are planning out your work packages, you are deciding which areas to address, and you are deploying the right resources and technologies. This is again where you probably need a partner, the technology partner. Going forward, of course, is the project implementation phase, when you actually implement the technology and the changes and take the journey forward. And of course, the next part is the sustenance part, and when you actually, having realized the digital transformation, you actually live it. So this is, in a nutshell, or very briefly, the entire digital transformation journey. So we have spoken about the what and the how. We have spoken about the need for the change. We have spoken about the value drivers. We have spoken about the mindset change. And now we have spoken about the digital transformation journey itself, how the path looks like. If you have looked at the digital transformation journey so far, very simplistically speaking, we can put into three boxes. On the left-hand side, you see the box, which is the ideation, the strategy, the main part where you are discovering value, where you are strategizing what is right for your organization. I go back to the example of the knife. When you actually decide whether you need the right grip or whether you need the more sharpened knife. So this is the ideation phase. This is the value discovery phase. This is the strategic phase. And this is where you will probably need an expert who will bring in that outside in view. Most important, very important, because when we are in an organization, we are sometimes, let's say, we get clouded by our own bias. We see things day in and day out, and therefore we get our vision gets clouded. This is something which the outside in view can change. It can benchmark for us the various KPIs. It can benchmark the various the KPIs for the value drivers. So therefore, this is the part which is the, let's say, the pre-work or the prelude to the entire process. The next box is the implementation phase. This is where where you do the digital twinning, you do the technology adoption, you do the integration. The entire transformation that is required. Hello? Am I audible?
Yeah, it's audible. Please carry on. Yeah, please carry on. Yeah. We had a break.
Hello?
Yeah, it's fine. Please carry on.
Okay. So when we talk about this part, which is the optimization part, this is really living the organization, having transformed, having put things in place. Not everything may go right. So therefore, you may need certain corrections, you may need certain adoptions, you may need certain changes, and this is the part what we call is optimization. So in a nutshell, these are the three boxes or the three, let's say, buckets or what have you, which is the part or which makes your digital transformation journey complete. Now, the final part, and which is I come to the end of my presentation. I will once again go back to the same topic. To do or not to do, to go or not to go, is no longer, I think, a choice before us. Because technology is changing, organizations are changing. If you do not change, others will. If you do not change, if I do not change, others will. The competition will make us irrelevant. The competition will simply make us into history. And that is what we do not want to let happen to us. Therefore, make your digital transformation plan today and let us move on this journey towards digital transformation. Thank you very much.
It's left. I will ask one question to you. So, how do you feel the digital transformation journey in India? How things are happening? I know we have seen a lot of examples of Siemens, of global factories being the printed circuit board manufacturing being already on to Industry 4.0. How do you see Siemens experience in India?
As I mentioned, the digital transformation is being talked about a lot. The let's say the adoption has not been so fast as yet, but I do see that in future, I mean, as things stand today, you will this will no longer remain a choice. This will be a necessity, because if you see today, just as a fallout of the current pandemic, before the pandemic hit us, the whole topic of remote connectivity and remote services was not so prevalent. Today, each and every customer wants to connect remotely. And this is not possible without transformation. You cannot wish it. You have to do it. You have to implement it. So I think the digital transformation, although it takes time, although it is taking time, just like in the earlier phases of changes, this will also happen in much faster than we think that it is.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so I think we'll let you go. Thanks for an excellent presentation from our side. Thank you. Thank you for coming and sharing your experience. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.